The mahogany doors of the courthouse closed behind me with a weight that felt final. I stood there, 72 years old, clutching a manila folder that held the last 30 years of my life in neat, legal typescript. The air conditioning hummed overhead, but I was sweating. Not from the Texas heat, we were well insulated from that, but from something colder. Betrayal has a particular chill to it, one that seeps into your bones and makes you wonder if you ever really knew the people you loved. My son Daniel sat 20 feet away on a polished bench, his wife Ashley beside him, both of them dressed like they were attending a funeral. Mine. Probably. They'd been planning it for months, I now knew. Planning to bury me alive in some luxury senior living facility while they divided up everything Margaret and I had built over 4 decades. The bailiff called my name. Mr. Robert Thornton? I nodded, and my attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who'd come highly recommended, touched my elbow. Remember, she whispered, let me do most of the talking. You just need to be present. The documents speak for themselves. Documents. Such small things to carry so much weight. But then again, Margaret had always believed in the power of preparation. Bobby, she'd told me 3 weeks before the cancer finally took her, her hand thin and cool in mine, I need you to promise me something. Anything, I'd said, meaning it. Don't let them take what we built. Our legacy isn't just buildings and bank accounts. It's the principle of it. The work we did together. I hadn't understood then, not really. Margaret had always been the cautious one, the planner, while I was the dreamer who saw empty lots and imagined shopping centers, warehouses, communities. But she was the one who made sure everything was documented, every deed filed, every contract ironclad. 3 months after her funeral, Daniel came to me with brochures. Dad, he'd said, spreading glossy pamphlets across my kitchen table, the same table where Margaret used to do the company books before we could afford a proper accountant. Ashley and I have been talking. This house is too much for you. All these stairs, the maintenance, the memories. He'd paused on that last word, and I'd felt something twist in my chest. He was right about the memories. Every corner held them. Margaret laughing in the kitchen. Margaret at her desk in the study, glasses sliding down her nose as she reviewed contracts. Margaret in the garden she'd loved. The one I still couldn't bear to let anyone else touch. There's this wonderful community in Scottsdale, Ashley chimed in, her voice honey-sweet. She'd always been good at that, making terrible things sound appealing. It's not a nursing home, Bob. It's luxury living for active seniors. Golf courses, activities, people your own age. I'm not that old, I'd said, more defensive than I'd intended. Of course not, Daniel had been quick to reassure. But Dad, running Thornton Properties, dealing with all the stress of tenants and developments and contractors, don't you want to retire? Really retire? You've earned it. I'd looked at my son, then 50 years old, still handsome in that clean-cut way Margaret had always loved, his father's jaw and his mother's eyes, and tried to see the boy who used to ride on my shoulders through construction sites, wearing an oversized hard hat and pointing at cranes. What about the company? I'd asked. And there it was. The slight glance between them. So quick I almost missed it. The kind of look that passes between conspirators. Well, Daniel had said slowly, Ashley and I have been thinking about that too. I've been working with you for 25 years now. I know the business inside and out. And with Ashley's MBA and her experience in commercial real estate, Dad, we could take Thornton Properties to the next level, expand into Austin, maybe even Houston. But we'd need full decision-making authority. You understand. I'd understood, all right. I'd understood that my son wanted me to sign over the company Margaret and I had started in 1985 with a $50,000 loan and a prayer. The company we'd grown from one small strip mall renovation into a portfolio worth north of $80 million. I'll think about it, I'd said. That's when things got ugly. Over the next 2 months, Daniel and Ashley went from gentle suggestions to something harder. They started showing up unannounced, checking on me. They mentioned how I'd forgotten to pay a bill, one bill, once, because I'd been visiting Margaret's grave and lost track of time. They called my doctor and somehow convinced him I needed a full cognitive evaluation. Dad's getting forgetful, Daniel told anyone who would listen. He's not managing well on his own. Mom handled everything. And now, we're worried. The evaluation came back fine. Perfectly healthy for my age, the doctor said. Sharp as ever. But that didn't stop them. The breaking point came 6 weeks ago. I'd arrived at the Thornton Properties office, the downtown Dallas high-rise we'd purchased 15 years ago when things really took off to find the locks changed. I'm sorry, Mr. Thornton, the new receptionist had said, looking genuinely distressed. Mr. Daniel said you were no longer authorized for building access. Something about a board decision? Board decision? I'd repeated, my voice rising. I am the board. I own 60% of this company. But she'd just shaken her head, eyes wide, and picked up the phone. That's when I'd known, really known. My son wasn't trying to help me retire gracefully. He was staging a coup. I'd driven straight to Margaret's grave that afternoon, something I did every Sunday but rarely on weekdays. The cemetery was quiet, just me and the groundskeeper in the distance. Margaret's headstone was simple, she'd insisted on that. Don't waste money on fancy granite when that money could go to scholarships, she'd told me. Always practical, my Margaret. They're doing it, I'd told her headstone, my voice cracking. Daniel, and that wife of his, they're taking everything we built. And Maggie, I don't know how to stop them. The wind had rustled through the oak trees, and for a moment, I'd let myself imagine it was her voice. What would she tell me? To fight, probably. Margaret never backed down from anything, but I was tired. So tired. That evening, I'd sat in my study, Margaret's study, really, and started going through her files. I'd been avoiding them, leaving everything exactly as she'd left it. Her reading glasses still on the desk. Her calendar still open to the month she died. But desperation makes you brave. In the bottom drawer of her filing cabinet, behind years of tax returns and property deeds, I'd found an envelope. Thick, cream-colored paper, expensive, the kind Margaret used for important occasions. My name was written across the front in her careful handwriting. For Bobby, open when you need it most. My hands had shaken as I'd opened it. Inside was a letter, dated 1 week before she died, and a business card for a law firm I didn't recognize. Chen and Associates, Patricia Chen, senior partner, estate planning and asset protection. The letter was vintage Margaret, straightforward, no nonsense, but with that thread of warmth that had always been just for me. My dearest Bobby, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and something has gone wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Daniel has proven himself to be the man I raised him to be, and you'll never need to open this envelope. But mothers see things. Mothers know. I've never told you this, but 5 years ago, I overheard a conversation between Danielle and Ashley that troubled me deeply. They were discussing what happens when the old man finally retires, as if you were already gone. As if our life's work was just an inheritance waiting to be claimed. I wanted to tell you then, but you were so proud of Daniel, so happy he'd joined the business. I couldn't bear to plant seeds of doubt, so instead, I did what I do best, I planned. 3 years ago, I restructured the company ownership. You still own 60%, that hasn't changed on paper. But I created a trust, Bobby. A irrevocable trust that protects your shares. Daniel can't force you out. He can't have you declared incompetent. He can't change the locks or make decisions without your written consent. I also included something else in the trust documents. Remember that property on Canyon Creek Road? The 50 acres we bought for next to nothing back in 1992? The land everyone said was worthless? I had it surveyed last year. There's a natural gas deposit under it, a significant one, worth somewhere around $40 million, according to the geological reports. That property isn't part of Thornton Properties, Bobby. It's in your name only, always has been. I made sure of it. I've left all the documentation with Patricia Chen. She's been my attorney for years. You've never met her because I kept her separate from the business deliberately. She knows everything. When you need her, she'll be there. Don't let them take what we built, Bobby. Not the company, and not your dignity. You're stronger than you think. You always have been. I love you. I'll always love you. Yo, Margaret. I'd read that letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face, before I'd finally picked up the phone and called Patricia Chen. Now, 6 weeks later, we were in court. Daniel and Ashley sat on their bench looking confident. They had their own attorney, some slick corporate type named Warren Prescott, who'd made his reputation defending hostile takeovers. They thought they had this locked up. The petition before the judge claimed I was suffering from early-stage dementia, that I was no longer capable of managing my affairs, and that Daniel, as my only heir and current COO of Thornton Properties, should be granted full power of attorney and control of all assets. They'd even found a doctor willing to say I showed signs of cognitive decline. Never mind that my own doctor had cleared me. They had their narrative, and they were sticking to it. Your Honor, Prescott began when the proceedings started. This is a simple matter of an aging father who can no longer manage his affairs and a devoted son trying to protect his father's legacy. Mr. Thornton has become paranoid, suspicious of his own family, and has made increasingly erratic business decisions. He went on like that for 20 minutes. I sat there listening to him describe a version of me I didn't recognize, confused, angry, living in the past, dangerous to myself and others. Daniel looked appropriately concerned, shaking his head sadly at all the right moments. Ashley dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, as if she were heartbroken. Then Patricia Chen stood up. Your Honor, she said crisply, everything Mr. Prescott has said is fiction, and I can prove it. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. 3 years ago, Margaret Thornton, Mr. Robert Thornton's late wife, established an irrevocable trust to protect the family business assets. She did this because she had concerns, documented concerns, about her son's intentions. This trust was created when Mrs. Thornton was in full health, before her illness, and was reviewed by 3 separate attorneys to ensure its validity. Patricia slid copies to the judge and to Prescott, who'd gone very still. According to this trust, Patricia continued, Mr. Robert Thornton's shares in Thornton Properties cannot be transferred, sold, or seized without his explicit written consent. They cannot be affected by any power of attorney, guardianship, or conservatorship. Furthermore, the trust stipulates that any attempt to have Mr. Thornton declared incompetent or to restrict his decision-making authority automatically triggers a full independent medical evaluation by a board of 3 physicians, not one doctor with a financial relationship to the petitioners. I watched Daniel's face drain of color. But there's more, Patricia said, and I heard the steel in her voice that must have made her so effective in courtrooms. Thornton also included a provision that if any family member attempted to undermine Mr. Thornton's authority or control, their own shares in the company would be subject to forced buyout at a price determined by independent valuation, not market value. Valuation based on company performance under their management. She pulled out another document. In the 6 months since Mr. Daniel Thornton changed the building locks and attempted to shut his father out of company operations, Thornton Properties has lost 3 major contracts, had 2 pending developments fall through, and seen a decline in portfolio value of approximately $12 million. This is documented in the quarterly reports filed with the state. Prescott shot to his feet. Your Honor, this is a fishing expedition. The trust documents should have been disclosed during discovery. They were, Patricia said coldly. We filed them 3 weeks ago. Your office signed for them. If you failed to read them, that's your malpractice, not our oversight. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Sandra Martinez, who'd been appointed to the bench after a long career in family law, held up her hand. Let me see those trust documents, she said. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Martinez read. I could see her eyebrows rising, could see the moment she reached the section about Margaret's concerns. She looked up at Daniel, then at me, then back at the documents. Mr. Prescott, she said finally, did you know about these trust provisions when you filed this petition? Your Honor, we believe them to be invalid on the grounds. That's not what I asked. Did you know about them? Prescott hesitated a moment too long. We were aware of the trust's existence, yes. So, you filed a petition for conservatorship knowing there were legal protections specifically designed to prevent exactly this action? The judge's voice was dangerously quiet. Your Honor, Daniel spoke up suddenly. My mother wasn't well when she created that trust. The cancer. The trust was created 3 years before her diagnosis, Patricia interrupted, and it was reviewed and approved by 3 independent attorneys. Would you like me to provide their sworn affidavits that Mrs. Thornton was completely competent when she signed these documents? Ashley grabbed Daniel's arm, whispering urgently, but he shook her off. This is insane, Daniel burst out. He's my father. I'm trying to protect him, and you're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. Are you? I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. It was the first time I'd spoken since entering the courtroom. Are you trying to protect me, Daniel? Or are you trying to protect yourself? Dad. Because from where I'm sitting, changing the locks on my own building, telling people I'm senile, trying to have me declared incompetent so you can sell off everything your mother and I built, that doesn't feel like protection, son. That feels like theft. Daniel's face flushed. You don't understand modern business. You're stuck in the past, and you're going to run the company into the ground. The company that was doing just fine until you took over, Patricia interjected. Your Honor, I have financial statements showing that under Mr. Daniel Thornton's sole management these past 6 months, the company has hemorrhaged money. Meanwhile, when Mr. Robert Thornton was running operations, Thornton Properties showed consistent growth year over year. She pulled out more documents. I didn't know where she got them all, but Margaret must have prepared for everything. Furthermore, Patricia continued, I have evidence that Mr. Daniel Thornton has been in negotiations to sell several key Thornton Properties assets to Meridian Development Group, a company where his wife, Mrs. Ashley Thornton, previously worked as VP of Acquisitions. A company that would benefit greatly from acquiring Thornton's portfolio at below-market prices. Ashley stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. We're leaving. Sit down, Mrs. Thornton, Judge Martinez said sharply. We're not finished. But Ashley was already heading for the door, Daniel scrambling after her. Your Honor, Prescott said desperately, we request a continuance to review. Denied. Judge Martinez's voice cut through the chaos. This petition is dismissed with prejudice, Mr. Robert Thornton clearly has full capacity to manage his affairs, and this attempt to circumvent legal protections put in place by his late wife is both transparent and troubling. I'm ordering a full audit of Thornton Properties to determine what actions Mr. Daniel Thornton took while operating without his father's proper authority. She looked at Daniel, who'd frozen in the doorway. Mr. Thornton, the younger Mr. Thornton, I suggest you get a different attorney. Because if this audit shows what I think it's going to show, you're going to need one. The gavel came down. It was over. Patricia touched my arm. Mr. Thornton, are you all right? I realized I was crying. Not from sadness, but from relief. And from grief, because even though I'd won, I'd lost something too. I'd lost the illusion that my son loved me more than he loved my money. I'm fine, I managed. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank Margaret, Patricia said gently. She's the one who planned this all. I just executed her wishes. Outside the courthouse, the late afternoon sun was brutal, the kind of heat that makes Dallas shimmer like a mirage. Daniel and Ashley were standing by their Mercedes, arguing in fierce whispers that stopped abruptly when I approached. Dad, Daniel started, but I held up my hand. I have something to tell you both, I said. Your mother left you out of her personal estate. Did you know that? Daniel's eyes widened. What? She left you her share of the company, the 10% she owned personally. That's worth about $8 million at current valuation. But everything else, the house, her personal accounts, some other assets she left to me. She told me she'd explain in a letter, but I never found it until last month. I pulled out another document from the folder Patricia had given me. This is a deed to 50 acres on Canyon Creek Road. You probably don't remember it. We bought it when you were in college. Your mother left it to me with specific instructions. Instructions for what? Ashley demanded. There's natural gas under that land. About $40 million worth. Your mother had it surveyed before she died. She wanted to make sure I'd be taken care of, that I'd have resources beyond the company. She knew. She knew I might need them. I watched that information land, watched Ashley's face calculate the loss. Now, here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm returning to Thornton Properties tomorrow. The locks will be changed back, and I'll be resuming full operational control. You, Daniel, are suspended pending the outcome of the judge's audit. If you're cleared, and I hope you are, I truly do, we'll discuss your role in the company. But if that audit shows you've been siphoning assets or setting up side deals with Meridian, I didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need to. You can't do this, Ashley hissed. That company should be ours. You're old. You should be. Careful, Patricia said, appearing beside me. Threatening an elderly man might not play well in court, especially when we're already discussing fraud charges. Daniel looked at me, really looked at me, and for just a second, I saw something that might have been regret, but then Ashley grabbed his arm, and whatever that moment was, it passed. This isn't over, Daniel said. Yes, I replied quietly. It is. They drove away, and I stood there in the courthouse parking lot, 72 years old, and suddenly exhausted. What will you do now? Patricia asked. Go home, I said. Visit Margaret's grave. Tell her she was right about everything, as usual. Patricia smiled. She was quite a woman. Yes, she was. That evening, I sat in Margaret's study, my study now, I supposed with all her documents spread around me, the trust papers, the gas survey, letters she'd written to Daniel that were never sent, probably because she'd hoped he'd change. But there was one more envelope at the bottom of the drawer, smaller this time, with just 3 words. When it's finished. I opened it. Bobby, if you're reading this, you did it. You stood up for yourself, for us, for everything we built together. I'm so proud of you. I know this hurts. I know losing Daniel's respect, maybe even his love, feels like losing a piece of your heart. But remember, real love doesn't come with conditions. Real love doesn't put a price tag on your worth. You gave that boy everything, your time, your knowledge, your faith. If he chose to throw that away for money, that's his loss, not yours. Now listen to me carefully. Don't spend the rest of your life bitter. Don't let this poison you. You have resources, now use them to build something new. Fund those scholarships we talked about. Start a foundation for small businesses like ours used to be. Travel to all those places I never got to see with you. Live, Bobby. Live enough for both of us. And know this. Every single day we had together was worth it. Every struggle, every triumph, every quiet morning with coffee in the kitchen. All of it. You made my life better just by being in it. Don't mourn me forever. Remember me. Yes. But don't stop living. I'll be waiting for you, whenever you're ready. But not yet. Not for a long time yet. All my love, always. Margaret. I folded the letter carefully and put it in my wallet, where I'd carry it every day. Then I picked up the phone and called my accountant. Jerry? It's Bob Thornton. I need you to set up a meeting with the Dean of Engineering at UT Dallas. I want to establish a scholarship fund. The Margaret Thornton Memorial Scholarship. For women in business and engineering. How much are you thinking? Jerry asked. I looked at the gas survey report, at the number written at the bottom. Let's start with $5 million, I said. We'll fund it every year. I want to help young women who don't have family, money, or connections, the ones who have to fight for everything they get. Margaret would like that. That's very generous, Bob. It's what she would have wanted. Over the next few months, the audit revealed that Daniel had been planning to sell Thornton Properties assets to Meridian at 30% below market value, a deal that would have netted him and Ashley kickback fees totaling nearly $6 million. He was charged with fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. Ashley divorced him before the trial even started. I didn't press charges as hard as I could have. He was still my son, even if he'd forgotten I was his father. He got probation, community service, and his reputation destroyed. That seemed like punishment enough. I ran Thornton Properties for 3 more years, then sold it to a management firm that promised to keep the Thornton name and maintain our relationships with local contractors and tenants. I kept enough for a very comfortable retirement and put the rest into the Margaret Thornton Foundation. Today, the foundation funds scholarships for 200 students a year. We've helped launch 30 small businesses with microloans and mentorship programs. We've built 3 community centers in underserved neighborhoods. And I travel. Last month, I went to Italy, something Margaret always wanted to do. I took photos of everything: the Amalfi Coast, the Tuscan Hills, the canals of Venice, and every night, I sat in my hotel room and told her about it all. "You should see this place, Maggie," I'd say to her photo on my phone. "You would have loved it." I'm 75 now. I have good days and bad days. Some mornings, I wake up and forget for just a moment that she's gone, and I reach for her side of the bed. Other days, I feel her presence so strongly it's like she never left. Daniel sent me a letter last year. A real one. Handwritten. Not email. He apologized. Said he'd been in therapy, that he understood now how badly he'd screwed up, how greed and resentment had poisoned him. He asked if we could maybe have coffee sometime. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Forgiveness isn't something you can rush. And trust, once broken, is a hell of a thing to repair. But I'm learning something Margaret tried to teach me all along. That your worth isn't measured by the money you make or the assets you accumulate. It's measured by what you do with what you have, and by how you treat people when you have the power to hurt them. She had the power to humiliate Daniel, to cut him off completely, to make sure he got nothing. Instead, she protected me while still leaving him his share of the company. She could have been vindictive, but she was just wise. I miss her every day, but I'm living enough for both of us, just like she asked. And you know what? That's its own kind of revenge. Not against Daniel. I've realized he was always his own worst enemy. But against the idea that old age means powerlessness, that betrayal means defeat, that losing someone you love means you stop living yourself. Margaret taught me that strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it's fighting back, sometimes it's standing your ground, and sometimes it's just surviving long enough to prove them all wrong. I survived. I'm still here. Still building things, still making a difference, still honoring the woman who loved me enough to protect me, even after she was gone. That's the real legacy. Not the money, not the company name, not even the foundation. It's knowing that real love, the kind Margaret and I had, doesn't end when the person dies. It continues. It protects. It guides. It gives you the strength to stand in a courthouse at 72 years old and fight for your dignity. And it wins. Every single time, it wins.